Well, good morning. It's coffee time. It's Saturday. Okay, I'm going to give you some brands. Okay, let's go with Audi, BMW, Toyota, Mont Blanc, Bic, Buck, like Buck knives, Benchmade knives, Smith and Wesson, uh, Nighthawk. Those are the two firearm ones I'm thinking of. Um, let's go with, and then let's go with Gibson, PRS, Harley Benton, Firefly, Epiphone, Fender. Okay. When I go through those lists of names, what do you think of when you think of any of those names? Put it in the comments. I want to know. Um, Mont Blanc, obviously. There's some of those brands that even if you're not familiar with the hobby, Mont Blanc, for example, that's a fountain pen, right? It's an expensive one. Everybody knows Buck knives on the utility side. A lot of people know Benchmade knives on the more premium side. Um, so we have all these various brand names. So the reason I'm bringing this list of brand names up, you had Audi versus Toyota, not versus, but those two kind of different levels of things. The reason I'm bringing this up is somebody just made a comment yesterday on a video, and it's a comment that I hear all the time. And somebody said, "You finally bought a nice guitar and just didn't buy the brand on the headstock." Here's the thing. No matter what price the guitar is, you're buying the brand on the headstock. So, sure, I did. I own guitars because of the name on the headstock. And I pay for that name depending on how much that name costs to come on that headstock. Makes sense. If I want an Audi, I buy an Audi. If I want a Mont Blanc, I buy a Mont Blanc. If I want a Benchmade, I buy a Benchmade. If I buy a Buck, I buy a Buck. If I buy a Bic pen for 39 cents, I buy a Bic pen for 39 cents. It doesn't matter the budget of the thing, right? A Buck 110 is what, 80 bucks? It's just a knife. So it doesn't matter, if you wear Fruit of the Looms or if you wear Tommy John's, $30 underwear or $5 underwear, you're still buying the name. Because when you say Fruit of the Loom, everybody knows. Tidy whities, it just pops right in your head, right? Like everybody knows. So why do people say this? Here's where, when we think about what a brand is, and I give this a lot of thought, obviously, because I have one. It's not just a label on the product, right? It's an identifier. It should be. Branding should be an identifier. Like when you brand a cow and that cow gets away from you, everybody knows where that cow belongs, right? So it's not just a name. It should identify what that company attempts to stand for and what they stand for. The goals, the mission statement of that company, whether that be part of it is being part of history, part of how the guitar is made, where the guitar comes from. If you think of the brand, I tried to look up some mission statements of some various companies. The cheaper ones, it was harder to find like a mission statement. So like Harley Benton doesn't really have one. But when you think of Harley Benton, you think, okay, this is a budget instrument and you can get basically any copy of any guitar you want for not a lot of money. That's kind of what you get, right? Same thing with Firefly. And then when you look at PRS does have more of a mission statement, and their thing is engineering. They want the guitar to be properly built. They take traditional designs, but then they push them ahead with engineering, which is what they do, right? Gibson is a legacy brand. They are one of the first, right? And yes, they lean on that, as they should, because they are one of the first. And most of the time, this makes sense, especially for people who are not experienced. They understand that, you know what, I'm just new to this. I don't want to spend a lot of money. I'm going to get a Squire. So that is like an association with the legacy brand of Fender, but I do not need to spend the money. It makes sense. The only time this "you're buying a name on the peghead" thing comes into play is when you don't personally identify with the core values of whatever brand that is, and you're talking crap to somebody else. So why would that happen? Well, first of all, you could be a jerk. But I think that's honestly, there's a lot less jerks in the world than I think we think there are. I think what happens is it accidentally happens. I think because here's what happens. I think you get lumped into tribes because that's also part of the brand. So you're a Gibson guy, you're a PRS guy, you're a Harley Benton guy, you're a Fender guy, you're a Firefly guy, right? An Epiphone guy. You get lumped into because that's part of the brand too, because you get the tribe with it. You get the community with it, right? I like to call it a community. Tribe is a little bit more, confrontational, where I think it's a community where we should all just discuss in peace our various likes and dislikes for instruments. I think that's the way it should be. So there's some identity signaling that happens there. So if you you find yourself in a different budget tier or a different quality tier or a different, just even if it's not budget, if it's just interest tier, like people like Harley Bentons because they like Harley Bentons. People like Gibsons because they like Gibsons. No other reason. That's totally cool. The other thing that happens is when we have a hobby, and this happens in all hobbies, not just guitar stuff. It's very common in guitar stuff. I see it all the time in the firearm stuff and in the knife stuff too. A lot less in fountain pens for some reason. You can have a $30 Lamy Safari and you can have an $800 or $1,000 Mont Blanc, and those people will coexist and enjoy each other without fighting about it for the most part, which is really weird that guitar people can't do that. But anyway, here's where it gets into the situation. It gets into things is I'll use a not guitar thing for an example. Okay, this is a $430 pocket knife. Okay, and you could say, well, you can buy a pocket knife at Bass Pro Shops that cuts things for $25 and be just fine. You're right. You could. You absolutely could. Where it gets into you're just buying the name is there's a lot of nuance. And I've been thinking about this, especially since I got my PRS. There's a lot of nuance about, I don't want to say the finer things, because I don't want to sound like nicer stuff some people won't understand. I don't mean it like that. Let's call it the finer points. So like, okay, anything beyond function, right? So we got a guitar that functions. It stays in tune and it plays and it makes sounds and the pickup switches work and everything. Okay, so that's our basic function. Same thing with a pocket knife. I can cut an Amazon box open with just about anything. We've got basic function, okay? Once we go beyond basic function, things get a little more nuanced, right? There are things that are quantifiable, like cost of parts and cost of labor and various things like that. But then there are things beyond those quantifiable things that you can write down on a piece of paper. Things like feel, things like balance is very hard. And a lot of that feel is literally in your hands. I play that PRS and I'm just like, these strings are doing things that the cheaper guitars just don't do. Henning just did a video on this and talked about how when you have a very expensive, very, very good guitar, not just an okay guitar, but a very good guitar, when you spend a lot of money for it and there's a thing that it does where you don't need to use as many effects. You don't need to, because there's a lot of like fix-it effects. Well, why don't I just get a graphic equalizer? Because my guitar doesn't need one, because it's awesome, right? Um, why don't I just get a graphic equalizer instead of replacing my pickups? Because my pickups are awesome, and you don't need to do that. You got to pay for it, but you don't need to do it. Your guitar will do more with my pickups in it. End of story. The same thing with all this other stuff. So you have this very nice guitar that does the thing. I can't tell you what that is. There's an X factor to it, and people will say that's sort of undefinable, and it's definable different by different people depending on how they use the tool, because they're getting different aspects of this greatness out of this instrument based on how they use it, right? Somebody else could be saying, well, this fretboard is really fast. Well, I'm not speedy, so I would never get that. So there's all different aspects, but the tool is so good that it can do very, very many things. But it costs money to get that, right? And we're talking about my 90-10-5 rule. 90% of the money is spent by 10% of the people. 90% of the money in the hobby is spent to get the last 10% of performance out of something that only 5% of people will actually appreciate. That's typically what happens. And so it's the same thing. So people that don't understand those finer nuances, or haven't, and I don't even want to say don't understand, they haven't found them for themselves yet, right? I don't want to sound condescending to anybody. If you've started playing guitar today and you don't understand why a guitar costs $5,000, you just haven't found it yet. You'll get there. I believe that you will get there. I believe that anybody who has a Harley Benton today who says, this is just as good as a Gibson, this is just as good as whatever, if they allow themselves and they don't stick with the tribe for the sake of sticking with the tribe, which is what you do. We all do it. And you actually allow yourself to learn. This is one of the biggest things I was thinking about this week. Then I believe that most of you, if you allow yourself, you will get to a point where you recognize, oh, wow, yeah, there's more here. This thing does some things. And so when you say you're just buying the brand name on the peg head, absolutely I am. But there's nuances to it. I can't exactly explain them to you. It's tough to put in a video. And if you haven't found those nuances for yourself, I can't make you. And so you may always say you're just buying the name on the peg head, as like a pejorative, where when really I'm like, well, absolutely I am, because man, there's some things here. And I hope that with time, if you say that now, you will discover those things for yourself in the future. That's what I hope. I really do hope that. And here's the fun part about it, is it doesn't go backwards usually. So what I mean is, I have a PRS. I have really nice guitars. I have some really, really, really nice guitars, right? And I'm very grateful for that. However, I will buy a Squier tomorrow and enjoy it just the same for different reasons, right? And I know a lot of folks in the comment sections talk about it all the time. They have very premium instruments, and they also have some very entry point instruments that do different things, and they enjoy them. So it doesn't have to be a pejorative. That's on you. There you go. Am I buying the brand name on the peg head? Absolutely.